In today's session, we are going to be learning about some of the aspects of staying up all night to learn Torah on Shavuos. We're basically going to focus on the actual learning itself, not all of the relevant halachas that pertain to staying up all night in general, which certainly would apply on Shavuos itself. That we discussed in the past. Recordings on RabbiBlan.com under the halacha section 494. 3 parts over there. See there for more details. What we are going to briefly discuss in today's session is where does this come from to learn all night, and what should a person be learning in particular? The Magen Avraham made the following Zohar very famous. The Magen Avraham, towards the beginning of Siman Tov Sadi Daled, relates Isa b'Zohar, says in the Zohar. Look up the Zohar, sources are in the parentheses where it is. Chasidim harishonim hayu ne'orim koil halaylo v'oiskin b'Torah. The earlier pious people would remain awake the entire night of Shevuos and learn Torah. And the custom among most people who learn Torah is already to do this. Comes the Magen Avraham, the Evsher Loses Tam Alpi Hapshuta. We could provide, it's possible to provide a reason according to the simple understanding. The Jews, they were sleeping the entire night when they were receiving the Torah. Famous reason, and Hashem had to wake them up, as it says in the Shir Hashirim Rabbah, as well as the Pirkei Rabbi those Midrashim. Therefore, we need to fix this, aka by remaining awake the entire night and learning Torah. The Mishna Berura, in the beginning of the halachas of Siras Ha'omer, of Shevuos, in Siman Tov Sadi Daled, the Mishna Berura says, he quotes this idea, Isa b'Zohar Chasidim harishonim hayinorim kol halayla v'oiskim v'toyno ukvar nahagu roi v'aloimdim laso iskein. Then the Mishna Berura adds, V'isa b'Shulchan Aruch Arizal. The Arizal says, Shekol mi shebalayla lo yoshan klal. Anyone who on this night of Shavuos doesn't sleep at all, v'ikr, at all, v'haya oisek b'Torah, and he's going to be learning Torah the whole night, muftach lo sheyashlim shenasa v'lo ye'ira lo yishum nezek. He'll be guaranteed that he will complete his year and no damage will fall upon him. No damage will occur to him. Obviously, that requires research because no one is immortal, and people die every single year, even though they stay up on Shavuos. So what you have to say this Arizal means is that no unusual damage will befall him. Something unusually bizarre that would be catastrophic or that would be damaging. The Hatam Kosovo Magen Avraham, the Magen Avraham writes the reason for this Alpi Peshuto Shi Yisrael Hayu Sheinim Kol Live Vutzvach Kodesh Baruch Hu Lahayu Roisim Lekabel Toiro. It's the Magen Avraham that we just saw. And then the Mishnah Berura proceeds, as does the Magen Avraham, to go into the intricate details and halachas that pertain regarding someone who stays up in the entire night, which applies any time of the year, but also on Shavuos. Equally on Shavuos, just like any other time of the year. Very fine. That's the Zohar, that's the Mishnah Berura, that's the Magen Avraham, nothing fancy. A lot of Torahs on this idea. The poskim discuss, Svarim HaKadoshim discuss, how Shavuos is at a very auspicious time. It's like the Yom Hadin ala Torah. The way that we learn on Shavuos will be the way that we learn the rest of the year. Also, the opening Mishnah, Meseches Rosh Hashanah, discusses the significance of the time of Shavuos. in terms of being din. One topic in particular to focus on, which is something that we'll need to cover sometime in the future. We have to finish our Chaim first, but it's an important topic that comes up in Siman Reish Mem Vav in your Deya and Hilchos Talmud Torah. What should a person learn in general? What should a person learn on Shavuos night? To start off with a source that most people are unaware of, a beautiful story about the Tikkun. It's a concept of saying Tikkun. Tikkun, you get bits and pieces of the entire Torah, and you say small sections of it, and you say it the whole night. It's a story with the Vilna Gaon and the Dubno Magid. The Vilna Gaon asked the Dubno Magid to give him Musar, to rebuke him. They had many conversations together. One of the conversations that they had revolved around precisely this topic that we're dealing with, the Tikkun. Tikkun Lil Shevuos. There's the Nevi'im, Ksuvim, etc. in there. Mishnah. Taryag mitzvahs is 613 mitzvahs. You have some of the Zohar. On one Shavuos Eve, the Dubno Magid was with the Vilna Gaon. And they both remained awake to learn on Shavuos night. And the Gra himself, he was actually reading the Tikkun, doing the Tikkun. You're going to see all of the sources, the who's who out of all rabbis who does the Tikkun. However, the Dubno Magid was learning from the Gemara as if it was just a regular, ordinary night. Dubno Magid. Finally, the Gra asked the Dubno Magid, why aren't you doing the Tikkun? You should be doing the Tikkun. So the Dubno Magid said, it's a good question. Why am I doing the Tikkun? May I answer you with a parable, as he always did? He said, sure. Once upon a time, there was a commercial traveler. He was in textiles. He was very successful in obtaining large orders for his customers. We call that B2B. You know about that?
Business to business.
That's right, very good. Okay, now you're more savvy than me. That don't even work. So it's B2B, that's where the cash is, because you're dealing high numbers. I only know that because my chavrusas, they teach me everything. But anyways, I teach them also plenty. It's okay. So he carried with him small samples. Yeah? And people, they always had a demand for it. They wanted those samples. David always at the edge of his seat listening to this story. So cute. Now, this man, I had a neighbor. Story you love. This man, he had a neighbor. He was a poor man. And he said to himself, oh, if my neighbor could be so successful and make so much money, what am I wasting my time with? Let me get on that train also. So the poor neighbor, he sets off to embark on his new journey. He's all excited. And his wife helped him prepare for him a homemade album. They pasted some remnants of different types of cloth. But when he made his rounds to the textile dealers, no one was listening. In fact, they laughed at his face. He was discouraged, and he asked his successful neighbor, what's the secret recipe? What's the secret to your hatzlacha, your success that you have? Good question. So the successful individual replied, you have to understand, the book that I carry represents samples from huge bolts of material, huge, massive materials that are available at the warehouses and the factories that I represent. All that my customers need to do leaf through my sample book, select the pattern that they like. The factory is going to send them whatever quantity they want. In other words, I've got a nice head and nice cattle. I can back up what I'm saying over here. You, on the other hand, you've got a nice head, no cattle. You got nothing to back up your little samples over there. What good are those scraps that you and your wife pasted together? You have no stock in trade. You have no materials that are available to your customers. It's just a collection of scraps representing nothing. Says the Dubno Magid. This answers your question. You, the Vilna Gaon, you have a lot of factories, a lot of storehouses. You've got a lot of merchandise. You have access to a vast stock of knowledge of all the holy books of our people. Sfarim HaKadoshim. And now you have brief selections from each, but you read in your Tikkun. They have meaning to you. They're exquisite samples of the spiritual treasures that they represent. Me, on the other hand, right? One section of Mishnah is going to recall you to the whole sugya over there. All the commentaries, all the pertaining laws on that subject. Me, on the other hand, I'm just a simple Magid. I have little learning. Therefore, the samples in the Tikkun don't mean much to me. I would only get a little benefit from these selections. Just get a little bit more benefit than that poor merchant that had nothing to back up his scraps with. So therefore, I have to go to the original source, the Gemara itself. No point of wasting the time with the Tikkun for me. No point. Not going to do anything. I think it's a very insightful story. It's really the first thing that comes to my head when people start talking about the Tikkun. People aren't aware of the story, but it's very insightful. But enough of the fluff. Get down to the bottom line halacha over here. Mishna Berura doesn't mention the situation of the Tikkun. Magen Avraham doesn't mention it. You look at the Dershim Mishna Berura over here, they have a fiery, lengthy footnote with dozens of sources. Beginning of this simon.
For the Tikkun?
Both ways. In footnote 3, beginning of the simon over here, they quote from the Derech HaChaim, the Prima Godim, the Yesod V'Shoyresh HaAvoido. We say that you should say the Tikkun and Shevuos. Also the Chasam Sofer. Oh yeah. He would say the whole Tikkun with this Talmidim. Also the Aderes. Also the Kaf HaChaim based on the Arizal. Based on the Zohar. And according to the Chidah and the Ben Yishchai, you should not be learning Mishnayos on this night. Comes out that you have around 10 sources to start to say the Tikkun.
Why Dafka Mishnayos
To start. It's a whole discussion about the Mishnayos. To come to that, we'll see if we have time.
Mishnayos in general, Mishnayos are in the Tikkun.
Mishnayos in general. Mishnayos in general, yeah. However, the Shlah, who I'm a descendant of, the Shlah says that after you finish reading the psukim of the Torah Shebechsav, in Tanakh, you should say the Mishnayos. Also, the Yosef Oimed says this. And what's the order? After you finish reading the psukim, the Torah Shebechsav, then you should be involved with Torah Shebal Peh, oral Torah. The Shulchan Aruch Harav says the main learning on Shavuos night should be Torah Shebal Peh, the oral Torah. Also, the Yeshuas Yaakov says this. Shalos Yeshuvas Or Letzion writes, even if someone wants to learn Torah Shebal Peh, should first say the Tikkun, even if you don't understand what you're saying. But he says, nevertheless, Bachrim, the boys in yeshiva who aren't married, that are learning yeshiva, they should do whatever the Rebbeim tell them to. Regarding the Tikkun, a lot of people aren't aware that this exists, but it's explicit on the page of the Shulchan Aruch. One of the amazing commentaries that we're Zohar for on Hilchos Pesach is the Chok Yaakov. The Chok Yaakov, towards the end of Sifkot and Aleph, says, Oid kosvu achroinim shel lishon belayla, rak yasik v'Torah. Don't sleep on Shavuos night. You should learn Torah v'aschar hu gadol. Your reward will be great. V'kvar nispashet amina gazeh be'inei hamon am lelumod yachla be'asara. This is already the spread custom to learn 10 people together. Al pia tikkun, to say the tikkun. V'loimar kaddish, and they say kaddish. V'toivlin kishayar yom, and they go to the mikvah. Before dawn, some go, he says, once it's already after sunrise, it seems like, or after dawn. Excuse me. V'yesh toivlin be'regel, some immerse in the mikvah on Erev Shevuos. Some actually hold you could cut your nails, your toenails, and your fingernails on the same day, specifically Erev Shevuos, even though we learned that you shouldn't in Hilchos Shabbos. I think it was Siman Reish Samach Beis we learned that. And because Chayev Atzmo, Tarer, you have to, Beregel, you have to purify yourself. And this is similar to a Nida, where she would cut all nails before she's toivel in the mikvah.
I go for every yantiv or just
Shevuos is man and Torah to be matar yourself. Shlishim Agbalo, they were matar themselves back then. They made themselves pure. One of my chavrusas suggested, young kid, suggested that the reason why you don't cut your nails, the toenails on your fingernails on the same day is because that's what they do to someone when they pass away. Interesting what to think about. But then the Chok Yaakov continues, Ubebeis Mord v'chamiza Hagoin Loy Nahagu, in my father-in-law's house, they didn't do this with 10 people. Everyone would say it individually. Ki ikar tikkun loy tikkun rak b'fnei amei haaretz, because the tikkun is really for the amei haaretz, the amaratzim, the people who are ignorant of Torah knowledge and don't know how to learn properly. Sheinim yoidim aloma, they don't know how to learn properly. See the Gemara in Brachos Mem Zayin Rabbeis Rabban that come for more details regarding amaratzim. Al Kain, therefore, oimrim atikun. That's why they would say the tikkun, which obviously is the opposite of the story of the film Dubno Magid. But nevertheless, you see a knockout punch over here that the Chok Yaakov doesn't. He's anti-tikkun. There should quote this. The Chazon Ish, they quote, said that there were people who would say the tikkun, and there were some people who said just to learn. Rossi Pesach Frank says people in yeshiva should learn the entire night, should learn with tremendous understanding and with depth. That's really the way to learn. You take a topic, you isolate it, you analyze it. You should continue learning that way. Why? That's the highest level of learning Torah. So he said. That's better than the tikkun. Then he talks about if someone had the custom to say tikkun, and now when he's coming to the yeshiva, he wants to learn Gemara. So Chaim Pinker Steinberg says he doesn't need to do Hataras Nedarim, annul his vow, so to say. He's fine.
for what?
Because he always said the tikkun, it's considered like he made a vow.
Tikkun.
But that was an insightful comment that that's the highest level of learning. Those are some of the sources regarding saying the tikkun or not. The Piskei Teshuvos discusses this. Not saying the Tikkun and Shevuos. Talks about learning with 10 people because in the Shekhinah is there, the divine presence of Hashem. Person has the attention span and he's awake enough to say the Tikkun the whole night. That's great. And then he adds in, it's correct, not to converse, not to speak, and he's Sicha B'Teila. Sicha B'Teila in English would be mundane speech, non-Torah related speech. The entire night until after Musaf. This is something that unfortunately has, Yitzhahar wasn't born yesterday, and it's amazing that you could have people up all night and they barely even learn anything. They're just schmoozing, they're eating, they're ready for these special food stations and hot food that they have prepared. We got enough hot food. What about the hot Torah? And therefore, the night is a night of Torah HaKadoshah, not a night of Sicha B'Tela. There's enough Sicha B'Tela in the world, and therefore, one should be careful. On Shavuos night, sometimes when you're learning, you eventually get thirsty or a little hungry. It's a very relevant shiloh that comes up on Shavuos night, but also a shiloh which pertains to the entire year as well. That shiloh is, if a person sits down to learn for a few hours and recites the bracha of Shehakol Niyeh Bidvado on water, how much time does that individual have to drink that cup of water? Similarly, tea, coffee, snacks. What is the time frame? Could that bracha last for hours? Shlomo Zalman Auerbach discusses this very relevant shiloh over here in the Halicha Shlomo. And he writes, Hanior Belel Shevuos Laslik B'Torah. Someone who is awake on the night of Shevuos to learn Torah HaKadoshah. Ubedai so lishtos mipam lepam b'meshech halayla. It's a minor. He has in mind. He said he's going to be taking drinks here and there and here. If he had explicit intent that this shahakal would cover all drinking that he would do afterwards, then it works. It would work. You would not need to recite another shahakal. However, that is not what one should do optimally. It's best to make a borei nefashos bracha achroina after he's done drinking, and then to make a new bracha rishon. Alcohol on each drinking.
Better?
It's better.
Well, I mean, if he has in mind that he's
What
going
does
to
that
keep
mean? Let's schmooze about that. Give me a minute before you attack the psak. That doesn't mean that every 4.5 seconds. That's not what he's doing. We're talking about that the guy he knows he's done for the next short while. Then he says the brain of
How long was the short while?
Oh, how long is the short while? I knew that was going to follow up. Don't worry, we got the answers. So
This is every day. I see the phone.
Oh yeah, person sits at the desk to work. Person sits in the base of Midrash to have Resifos B'Torah HaKadoshah. Yeah, what'd you say?
Yeah, you walk to the kitchen and then figure out, where you're drinking, what you're learning is not where the drinks are. You bring it to you. You're drinking over there. A lot of variables.
The time over here for this, Tiskei Chuvas points out, says this over here. You could do this. That has a chadas, In the footnote, he quotes the Halicha Shlomo. I actually learned the Halicha Shlomo before the Tiskei Chuvas, but he quotes this. And he cross-references him in Kuf Pei Daled, where it seems like 11 minutes. 11 minutes. If you think you're going to be more than 11 minutes, probably you would say the brain of Fashos, which is different than benching. And we'll learn about that more in Siman Kuf Pei Daled. Right? So, that's a pretty relevant topic that comes up over here. Many defend learning whatever you want on the night of Shevuos. The Makom Shali Chafetz. The Gemara Avodah Zarah says, if I'm not mistaken, Yud Tes person will only learn Torah from the area that his heart desires. The Kaf Achas, written by the Chidah, says that on Shavuos night you should come up with a Chiddush in Torah, a new Torah insight. And if you can come up with Chidushim, learn something new that you never learned before. So similar to what we learned in Hilchos Shabbos. And on Shabbos you should learn something new, Siman Reish Shadi, right? Learn something new.
What's this? It's this concept that it's special to learn something new. What's the...
Well, on Shabbos, so that your Neshama Yeseda could go back upstairs, and now it has something to give the Eibishter. Do you think that your neshama yeseda cares about your fifth cut of meat that you're eating, or that you had 3 different types of cholent and you attended 5 kiddushim and you got a little tipsy at each one and then you got drunk? He doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about the type of kugel you had. He cares about the Torah HaKadosh.
What's the difference in you're learning or a chiddush?
Chiddush is the highest level. When you come up with a chiddush, that means you have to use your mind. You have to think about something. You created something anew. What's the difference if you watch my kids or if you have your own kids? That it is you created children. Beautiful thing. You help watch my kids. But to create your own children, that's great. So when you're watching the show, you're learning. That's great. What are you bringing to the world? What are you adding? You putting it all together? Question is, what's a chiddush? They say if you didn't understand something, you worked on it and you understand it, that could be a chiddush for you. Different levels of a chiddush. You create an insight. You tie different things together that was never tied together before. You do something. What about women saying that Tikkun? Basically, they should stay away from it. They counted Sfira the whole way through. They can learn Tanakh. Finish the Tikkun, Sfira. Saying Tehillim is a nice thing also for women on Yom Tov. Whole thing, so staying up thing. A woman who wants to stay up, I guess she could. It's a man's thing to stay up. So now they're having certain places. Women's learning all these sessions. Or do you think I'm afraid someone's going to listen to this? Say whatever I want about the topic. I'll say it as it is. Get them in a different room. They shouldn't be with the men. They should not be in the same room. You see certain places, they have chavruta, boys and girls together. Should not be happening. We don't believe in that. Believe in that at all. Keep the men with the men, the women with the women. There's enough intermingling on the streets as it is, especially with this brief and mild heat wave before the summer officially begins in New York over here. There's enough inappropriately dressed people on the street. You don't need to bring it in the only holy place that we have left.
Okay,
I'd like to end today's session with pointing out a few things from yesterday's session. Yesterday's session, we did a deep dive on making an earlier Yom Tov, a Kiddush by Havdalah, just to go back to this fundamental tshuva from the L'chayros Nasan over here. Just a few points, brief points that we might have missed yesterday. Basically, just to summarize this literally in 2 minutes, because I worked a lot on this for over an hour yesterday on this tshuva and typed it up, went through it. Basically, the idea over here is that women, wanted to say, should not make Kiddush before Seisel Chavim 3 stars emerge. Shevuos is unlike any other holiday. And they are connected to Shevuos. That's his main point. How could you reconcile that with that they're exempt from Sfira? The answer is because they're obligated in Shevuos itself, which you need a completeness in order to begin. Okay. What about Tosefes Yom Tov Midarai? So you have to add on to the holiday and start it earlier from the Torah. How could you do that on Shevuos? Okay. The answer is there's a Taisvus in Ksubas that says that's only regarding Malacha. You cannot do prohibited acts that you're not allowed to do on Yom Tov. However, this is a key line of Taisvus that I missed yesterday. I apologize. At that moment, leka mitzvah simchas Yom Tov. When it's not actually 3 stars don't emerge, there's no obligation to rejoice in the festivities of the holiday itself. So it's kind of a quasi. It has a dual function at that time. And then the L'Hayras Nassan explains the Taisva saying that the whole reason of accepting the holiday earlier is so that you won't come to do prohibited work and acts on the holiday itself. Yeah? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Taisva's then goes into, so then, how do you ever make Kiddush early on any Shabbos or Yontif? It's not Kodesh yet. It's not holy yet.
Yeah, you have the right to do.
So
You make it.
you have a right, but based on that Taisvus and the whole thesis that we have to be consistent with, that doesn't coincide. Doesn't work. So he says it's easy to answer that based on a Rambam. It's clear from the Rambam. You could do it near the time of Shabbos or Yontif. You have the het there. It doesn't need to be exactly then. And he says accordingly, the Horace Nassan says, the holiness of the day didn't come in yet, but you still can't work. But it's fine. Shabbos and Yontif still works. And then at the end, he goes in to say that based on everything that we just said, if you made Kiddush when it was still day, even on Shevuos, even though 3 stars didn't emerge, you'd be fine. Based on what we said. Technically, you could do it when it's still day.
But for the woman.
Even for men.
Yeah, but you're lacking tzmimus.
Even for men. It's fine. Even for men.
What about the tzmimus?
It's fine. It's fine. Fine. But it's not preferable. He quotes the Shlah, who the Shlah has he quotes the whole thing over here. And he says, after he quotes the Shlah, I want to show you the beautiful line that he says. He's talking about the problems over here in the whole Shlah.
Whoa.
And he says, based on this Shlah, the whole problem is that he says it's implied from over here that you fulfill your obligation b'diavad even if you did Kiddush earlier. Also, furthermore, the Shlah, it's clear from the Shlah, he's only concerned about the actual Kiddush being before 3 stars come out, not davening.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the biggest insight. The Yosef Oimetz says, from the beginning over here, I never saw the older rabbis that did this, that waited for 3 stars to emerge, especially those who are medaktikim, who are precise, who stand in the house of God. He says, Bebeis Hashem. Where was that? Yeah, Beis Hashem B'Lailos, that they stay up all night. V'halaylos ben kisarim, the night short enough is only 4 or 5 hours to learn. V'im yislameo, if you're going to delay with Kiddush and beginning the eating until 3 stars emerge, you're missing half the night. Hashem just wants our hearts. And therefore, mutter lasois Kiddush bein hashmoshois, ki medaraisa kari bein hashmoshos laila. According to the Yosef Emetz, you can make Kiddush even before 3 stars emerge. Midaraisa, that's called night. So then the Har Sinai concludes by saying, for us, for sure, we should be careful to wait for 3 stars to emerge to say Kiddush, because the Ta'az, the Magen Avraham, we live from their mouth. They said this, but b'diavad post facto, you would fulfill your obligation. And from the Shlah, it's only on Kiddush, but not on davening itself. And therefore, he wants to say, perhaps the only reason that the Taz added this and said also for davening you should wait is so that people won't go home too early and they're going to eat and make Kiddush before 3 stars emerge. At the end of the day, the custom of the world, it seems like, is to wait for Mariv, also the first night, for 3 stars to emerge. But this is incredible insight that you have on this topic. Also, I just want to add, we discussed yesterday the concept, or Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said it's permissible for women to light earlier, even though perhaps they could be they could light earlier. It's not a problem because all the poskim, they only talk about Kiddush and davening. However, if you look in the footnote of the Piskei Teshuvos, he says Sarachyin, because based on what we learned in Siman Reish Samach Gimel, they're going to say Shachianu when they light. If they're going to say Shachianu when they light, they're accepting Yantif. So he questions that. Even so, there's what Torah allowing to do that. Some are stringent that they just light later when it's already Yantif. So there's definitely what to chew on this topic that we did. A lot going on. It's Hashem will continue to our Shavuos today. Sorry, we were a little over time. Okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh. Where's the road try to daven? You daven very close to your house on Yantif?
Yeah, usually.
No, not really.
All right, have a good day.